Hello, and welcome back. Give myself a little wine here. Okay, so I am taking some time to bake some pieces that I'm working on with polymer clay. And I wanted to do a quick chat about ignoring the voices in your head, the random voices in your head. So I was working on some painting earlier, and this experience kind of came up again, and it was in a different perspective of I've been able to kind of reflect on this. So I've been able to kind of get through the experience, and I, for the first time, I am aware of this other side of things, and I'll tell you, it's pretty amazing. So let me see how brief I can keep this, because I've tried to make this a few times and it just doesn't seem to come out right. Let me see what I can do. So the thing that I've struggled with the most is listening to all of the advice and opinions and everything else of other people my whole life. And I think that being empathic, I am more geared towards that sense of others rather than myself. So that what this has meant to me when I say I've listened to other voices, the voice that's been in my head, that's been ruling my thoughts for so long, has been a composite of everybody in my life. Everything, everybody, all the influences, all of the impressions. And because I've been struggling with depression for over 10 years now, I have had the lowest of lows for 10 years. And it's taking me that long to find light again. And when I found light at the end of my tunnel that I was in, because I will always have depression, I will always deal with anxiety, but I no longer battle what comes up. So because I've asked myself what's going on, instead of telling myself, no, this is bad, this is wrong, don't think those things, because I fought that. I told myself these voices are wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. And while all of that was true, it was also not authentic. Like, I wasn't believing that. So after a lot of effort to recognize that voice as an other and not as myself, didn't originate in my thoughts, in my heart, I started to objectify it, put it outside of myself and put it into a box. And I kind of called it like a little devil on my shoulder, because it was always whispering things in my ear, as it were, and incredibly painful, very harmful, very negative, very oppressive, very harmful. I said that twice. It's really damaging. And being a creative person, it completely sapped all of my creative energy out of me. It disabled that mechanism in my body, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. It just turned it off, and I couldn't do it. I tried, and it was so painful, and it was so hard. And I knew that making things creatively shouldn't be this hard. It should feel good, ultimately. And so I started asking what this voice was, where it was coming from, where have I heard it before? And I started to acknowledge and recognize it wasn't mine, because all I ever wanted for myself was good things. And I wasn't, believe me, nothing good was coming my way in that sense. Like, it was just like struggle, after hardship, after heartbreak, after just going on and on and on and on. And it disabled my relationships. I would say for at least probably 6 years, if not longer, completely pulled away socially. And it was a desperation to save myself, because I was being in certain social environments, I started to realize, were the trigger for this realization. So it helped me But I was around people who I don't exactly understand how I got into that. Like, I see how it happened, but I'm trying to understand, did I miss a cue somewhere? Did I not pick up on a social cue, on a personality cue? I ended up around people who were pretty terrible people. They were mean, almost abusive to friendships, mistreating, and just generally just disregard for vulnerability and compassion, and just all of that was out the window. Need a sip of wine. Oh. So I'm incredibly thankful that I got that toxicity out of my life. And because I will tell you, if you are as sensitive as myself, you will feel, I felt toxic people incredibly clearly, but no one else around me was recognizing it. And it took 2 long-term relationships, one family, one friend, to recognize, like, I was able to see those and then pull away from them eventually before anybody else was recognizing it. No one else was willing to acknowledge it. And I was very alone in that. And so I had to say, fine, I'm going to be the outsider here. I'm going to just say no, and I'm backing away from this, and I'm moving past this. I'm moving on. And it took years in both instances for everyone else to wake up to the fact, or to acknowledge it, or to act on it, whatever it was. It was incredibly comforting to hear people finally saying what I had been feeling for so long. But I will tell you, you don't realize what is negative in your life, right? What's toxic, what's harming, what's hurting, what's beating you up, until you move it, until you remove it, until you take it out. And so that's why I knew, by watching the kinds of relationships I was having around me, I noticed it blatantly in front of me. Like, this person would say something really just, why would you say that to someone you're supposed to be friends with? To the incredibly painful process of going home and beating myself up for days on end because this person said something terrible, so something about me, it must be about me. To, that's not at all anything about me. That has nothing to do with me. That was just this person's problem. To accepting them for who they are and just being in space from them. And that's it. So that whole kind of, it's like I think they call it in like psychology, like a death process, the acceptance of something to end for, like it's ending, that those relationships ended. But what I found in myself was the strength to say, what else have I taken on that's not mine? So because I did it outwardly, openly, these people in front of me, then I moved to, what is the voice in my head saying? What are these intentions? What are these thoughts? What else coming up? Because I would sit in my studio trying to do stuff, and it was like I had a punching arm just sitting next to me, punching me over and over again for hours on end. And I could maybe sit in here for 30 minutes before I was like crying, because this was not an escape from anything. This magnified it all. And I know by experience that something in my creativity is tied to my emotional wellness. I can't create out of pain. I can't create out of fear, hate, none of that. That doesn't work for me. And it's frustrating, I'll tell you. I want to create certain kinds of art, and my psyche won't allow me. It's like, no, sparkles and rainbows and unicorns. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So I guess I'll do that today. So I'm just embracing it. But I'll tell you, it's like, it's a whole battle. It's this whole thing. But ultimately, I quit listening to the other voices because I wasn't making, in my instance, my art is the indicator of my mental health and my emotional wellness. And if I can't create the things I want to create with joy and love and peace and goodness and all the things that are in me, like it feels good to do these things, then I'm creating it out of pain and misery and suffering. And it's like, it wasn't working. I tried it, and I thought maybe I'll find my message in this heartache and this heartbreak and my pain and my existence and whatever. And it didn't work. It did not work at all. And I'll tell you, I tried so hard for so long to force this experience, and I just gave up. I just was like, I'm done trying. This is too hard. This is requiring way too much effort. And that was when I finally kind of like broke out of that experience, because I was taking time to make space to just acknowledge what was there. And I will say, it is the most worthwhile thing I've ever undertaken. While I was in it, it didn't seem like, I was like, why am I doing this? This is such a waste of my life. It's not. The way that I implemented this was through deep compassion for myself, which I practiced by exhibiting that to others, expressing compassion to them. So I knew what compassion looked like. And then creating an open mind and an open space that says I can allow for this person to exist independent of me. They don't have to reflect my needs and wants in the world, which is a healthy mindset anyways. But doing that for another person, which was almost easier, because it's in Western culture, I've understood that we have a very hard time exhibiting the same things we give to others to ourselves. We don't have a lot of self-compassion. So I give to others because I have a hard time giving, even because I'm so shut down and so encumbered by my painful experience. So I started to do it for others. And then I noticed that people in the world around me were receptive and grateful, it seemed like, for that display, that compassion, that acceptance. And so then when I went in to express it with myself, I found it much easier. And I did things like I vocalized the voice in my head. I give it a voice. It's not me. I'm going to give it a megaphone so it can hear what it sounds like. Okay, that's amazing. I will tell you that. Vocalize the voice, and I could hear it, and it wasn't me, and it was the impressions of the world around me. So I started to share those voices with my husband, tell him what these voices were saying, what these ideas and messages were saying. He reflected back to me, that's messed up. That's not you. Like that sounds terrible. And I was like, yeah, so this is not me. This is other people. This is the world around me. This is whatever. This is the pressure of the world. So I started to push it out and make it something else. It was outside of me. I was going to put it into that space and say, okay, what do you got to say? If you've got a message for me, tell me what you got to say. So I started vocalizing it. And eventually the voice kind of started to lose its power because it wasn't secret anymore. And I think that's the biggest thing about mental health, especially in the West, is we keep these painful experiences to ourselves thinking we should be embarrassed, we should be ashamed, we should be better than that. And the reality is that everybody deals with this in some way or another. And giving the space to my experience, to allow for that to exhibit itself and then to address it, to say, what do I want to do with that? I don't believe it. I don't trust it. It's not mine. I don't have to keep it. So I started to kind of just hear it eventually. After I vocalized it for a while and gave it some space to be vocalized, I then let it kind of come and flow through me as best I can. And it has all kinds of triggers. It has all kinds of reactions. And sometimes it comes up as anxiety and I get a twitch. Like that's kind of the way I kind of pop it out of me, I guess. But I've noticed that I feel so much better. And so I'm here to tell you and share with you, if you're hearing that negative, oppressive, beating you up message inside, ask what it wants. Don't fight it anymore. Just ask what it wants. And what the reality that I came to in that process was to say, it can't hurt me. There's nothing to be afraid of. It can't hurt me. And I give it more space and I ask what it wants. And I give it more space and I ask what it wants. And every time I kept doing this, I realized I was giving myself space. I was giving myself what I needed. And I kept creating a greater space in me, which meant it was further on the outsides and further on the outsides and further on the outsides of this bubble that I was growing, that I then filled, because it felt very empty for a while, was then filled with beautiful, glowing pink light and energy and love and compassion and all the things I was putting into it. So the thing that I was putting out was coming right back at me. And that's why I think that the message that we share to the world in real life, online is, I don't know if that's so much a fair estimate, because I think people let their frustrations out online, and that's fine, within reason. But I think that when I shared that with the world, with the people that I trust the most, and my therapist, I found an immense amount of capacity for space for myself. And all of a sudden, I was like, I still struggle with depression, I still have anxiety, I still have all these things, but I can finally create now. I can make stuff again. And that was what told me I have succeeded in something. I can't tell you what I've succeeded at, but I can say that it was worthwhile, 100%. So if you hear this negative voice in your head and you hear that negative message and it's beating you up and it's tearing you down, ask it what it wants. And know that it's not you. Give yourself the most love that you can give and make as much space as you can possibly make to get yourself what you need. And it's not outside of yourself. It's helpful when people are supportive. It's great. But in the end, we are our best interests. We are our best remedy. We have everything that we need within ourselves to give ourselves what we need. We can go find it. We have resources. We're good. We're intuitive. We know what our heart wants. And that's the best treatment for the suffering. Because that voice is not us. That voice is not me. And I now know who I am because I don't listen to that voice anymore. I hear who I am. And I have all kinds of ideas. I have all kinds of notions. And I'm sure I'm wrong about things sometimes, and that's fine too. But when it comes down to it, is that in the end, is that this life is only mine. That's all I can do. And no one else can live my life but me. I hope this finds you well. And if you have any questions, just please let me know. I don't mind answering. Be respectful, be kind. This is a safe space. And thank you for being you. I appreciate you being here.